there were great changes taking place in the music as well as in the art world during this time leading up to World War I. 19th century orchestral music particularly discarded traditional forms like the symphony, or either handled those forms radically. Composers during this period of time wrote what was called symphonies, but they wouldn't have been recognizable by classical composers at all. These composers wanted to communicate beyond purely musical values. And so they created new treatments of melody, harmony, and rhythm. They sought the expression of the composer's inner emotions, and they also produced program music, or what's often called program symphonies or tone poems. Program music had very elaborate plot lines that the music described. And so the composers would try to combine the narrative and the musical interests. So we have composers combining narrative with music, expressing their innermost thoughts, and treating melody, harmony, and rhythm differently. All of these things helped them communicate beyond purely traditional musical values. Richard Strauss is a German composer during the late 19th, early 20th century, and he wrote these tone poems, or this program music. One of his first successful tone poems was Don Juan, and there's a long tradition of writing about this particular character. But in Strauss's version, he presents a man who is trying to overcome the boundaries of human nature, only to fail and thus commit suicide. The music here matches the narrative, just as a tone poem or program music should, and it's a very darkly emotional throughout. Till Eulenspiegel is another successful tone poem by Strauss, but it's humorous. In it, he tells the story of a practical joker and a swindler, and so again, the music matches the narrative. The music in Till Eulenspiegel is very cheerful and lighthearted. Now, Strauss also wrote autobiographical compositions, and these last two detail his inner emotional life. So again, we see program music, we see this inner expression as new things in music. Now, Tchaikovsky, in a work called his Pathetique, and we've seen that with other composers have a similar title, he was one of the first composers to make his personal emotions the basis for the symphony, period. It was all about what he felt. Also during this period, not unlike Impressionism in art, you have one particular composer striving for Impressionism in music. And that particular man's name was Claude De Beusse. And he is considered to be the only true Impressionist composer. He, like the Impressionist painters, strongly reacted to tradition. In his work, he depicts nature and often evokes the sea, the rain, and very intangible sensations. He also often has shifts in his musical tone, which mirror that of the Impressionist painters. And we're going to listen, after this is over, to one of his pieces, Clair de Lune, which is just moonlight, when he is attempting to capture moonlight in a musical piece. So you can listen to it and see if he succeeds. A composer named Schoenberg believed that the time had come to abandon harmonic the harmonic or the tonal system that had undergirded music up until this point. So he began to write atonal music, and atonal music avoided traditional chords and harmonies. Again, a clear rejection of traditional values. Atonality creates a mood of instability, clearly a reflection of the feelings and the culture at the time. In this particular work here, this is a 21 poem slash song sequence for a woman's voice and instruments. And through these 21 poems, her bizarre experiences are described with words and very fantastic or macabre music. Now, the speaker in these songs slash poems actually speaks the words at specific pitches, and this is what's called sprechstimme, and it just means voiced speech, and it adds a dreamlike quality to the music. And I have a clip of a portion of this work, and you can hear what this sprechstimme actually sounds like. And finally, we come to Igor Stravinsky. Stravinsky was Russian, and at his very first performance in Paris, he was hissed at and booed and yelled at, and people claimed that he destroyed music. He did have very changing, complex, violent rhythms in his work, and we'll listen to a portion of the Rite of Spring, and you can hear those changing and violent rhythms. But interestingly, he is now hailed as the founder of modern music.